Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info, and welcome to our latest episode of Behind the Wall, the post-race show that comes on after the race, or unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection. Daniel Suarez has pulled off his third career Cup victory in a rain-shortened Coca-Cola 600, a tremendously popular victory for a tremendously popular driver. A surprise, certainly, given the fact that Toyota had so completely dominated this race until towards the end there. A little bit of controversy between weather that was moving in, rain and lightning in the area on a weekend that had no shortage of rain and no shortage of tears as well. We'll, of course, address the biggest story from this last week and indeed easily through this season. That, of course, the loss of Kyle Busch at the age of 41 this past Thursday. It's going to be a little bit of a different show here this time around, at least in some senses. I mean, kind of preparing for it tonight. I feel like we're probably going to be drifting in and out of talking about Kyle Busch in between all of our usual race review segments. We'll still feature another book from Kevin Schwarzy's library. This is another sponsored episode here as well. We'll do some trivia here. I've had some issues with my second screen, but I think it's working so far, so hopefully we should still be able to do our trivia portion here tonight. But we'll certainly talk about everything this weekend. And we'll also talk about the Indy 500 and an absolutely legendary race and a fantastic finish with an equally fantastic broadcast in it. So no shortage of stuff to talk about here. It's a late night show tonight with the 600. This is always probably our latest show of the year. So we'll definitely be talking about all that tonight as well. So I think probably the best way is we'll go ahead and just get into the Cup race here a bit, and then we'll probably go, we'll just kind of figure things out from there. So again, congratulations to Daniel Suarez. The first time that the car number 7 has won a Cup Series race since August of 1996. With Jeffrey Bodine driving the QVC car. Full story on that. I'd highly recommend Dominic Aragon's excellent book, all of it. That was Bodine's biography. That's one of the many stories that's covered in there as well. And it's hard to believe it's been that long. Just talking with Lastbro about that, thinking about Robbie Gordon's career, running the number 7 for many years, Michael Waltrip driving the number before he went to DEI, other teams that have come up. You think of Mongo and Jimmy Spencer car. This is, an element of history here that I always like referring back to, especially in the last car articles as well, that really ties back the past with the present. And, to see that victory here nowadays, and so many years later, after all of that, and actually really kind of has a tie-in, not only the fact, of course, that Kyle Busch won his 69th and final Truck Series race last week at Dover, driving the Spire number 7, but also, again, going even further back in that number's history, of course, to losing Alan Kawicki under similar circumstances during a season, and so forth there as well. So, again, the connections are everywhere, and it's still a lot to internalize here, and we'll certainly be talking about that as well. I put the camera a little bit off center here, as I had a few things. I just kind of set up a little display here with some Kyle Busch stuff we've collected over the years, and figured that would probably be a good way to tie the image together here as well. First of all, the 600. I'm glad that Prime is back. They did a fantastic broadcast, as they would always done, and right off the bat, facing a very similar situation to what Fox did in 2001. Now, this isn't the first time Prime broadcast races. Of course, they did races last year, and people were very excited about it, hoping that they would continue to do so. And I think has re-examined Fox's broadcast, as well as ones that NBC and TNT did later in the year. There was a lot of anticipation for them coming back again this week. Certainly after the Watkins Glen race that Fox had, where they just completely missed major events and made the race seem much more boring than it turned out to be. So seeing that group come back, and then on top of this, to have to address just an awful situation that I'm sure blindsided all of us on Thursday, and to have to address it, and everybody just figuring it out. I thought they did an amazing job. As I said online, again, I've not been a big Adam Alexander fan, but I mentioned this when somebody was bringing this up to me on social media, and I was very impressed with how Adam handled the Connor Zilic incident last year at Watkins Glen. Yes, of course, we found out that that wasn't as serious as it could have been, that indeed Zilic was kind of laughing it off, and, now we've kind of been able to since then as well. But in the moment, we didn't know that, and I thought he handled that absolutely perfectly, and that very much continued here into the broadcast today. I think the networks did a fine job in what was a very difficult situation, to say the least. I mean, words are still insufficient in all how all this played out. But I thought the tributes they did at the beginning were tremendously powerful, at least at the same, certainly the same level since Davey Allison in '93, and definitely Earnhardt in 2001. For the family to be out there and be a part of it, remarkable individuals. Yeah, so the way that was handled was done really well. Steve O'Donnell, I'm hearing comments already about him becoming NASCAR's president in this moment. Obviously, he'd already officially claimed earned that title after everything that happened last year. But him being present for it and saying the right things at the right time, he did an amazing job, and that's wonderful. And the imagery of everybody, it's going to be hard not to get emotional on this, but that's just kind of the where things are here. That was done very well. And to lead things off that way, it was a tall ask for a lot of the people involved, for the fans involved. And on top of this, that's already a very solemn weekend anyway, with it being Memorial Day weekend and, of course, honoring our fallen service members as well. That can already have a lot of, obviously it does have a lot of emotion to it. I mean, not can, of course it does. It's incredibly solemn. So you throw that in, then you have the rain on top of it, which logistically made the whole weekend really challenging. Races constantly getting moved around. The Truck Series race getting moved, 3 times at least to this morning. And still starting the race. Now it ended under circumstances that I'm seeing people already have issue with, but that's another part. We'll talk about that more when we get into that race there as well. But to get those 3 races in any state and form with all of this going on here, under, again, difficult circumstances with the weather and with what had happened to this point. That was tremendously done. And that's really what I have to say about that leading off here too. Going into the race itself, I mean, the 600 here, this was certainly, this is a track that everybody's been very excited about the way that this car handles this track. It's been very competitive here. We're getting the return of the fall race here in October, the 500-mile race there in the fall, instead of the Roval, and I think people should be very excited about that event as well. I think that's always been a sleeper, even in older races as well. I'm hopeful that the NASCAR Classics is really going to beef up the attention towards that event in the fall, and some of the big moments that were unique to that, separate and apart from the 600 and classic races and the All-Star race at Charlotte as well. And I think that this was another good example of it. We had very few drivers that kind of distinguished themselves from the rest of the field. The Toyota drivers were all pretty much universally excellent. Even Eric Jones had moments in this race that he was contending for the lead. Tyler Reddick looked very strong from the pole position after qualifying got washed out. Denny Hamlin up there, Christopher Bell as well, and Ty Gibbs in and around the top 5 the entire race. I'd picked William Byron to win this race. I thought this was going to be a big day for Hendrick to turn around. We really only saw that out of Kyle Larson, who was one of the only Chevys before Suarez to really kind of mix things up. Chase Elliott wrecked on the back straightaway. Alex Bowman had a transaxle issue. And William Byron got, I think, some minor damage in the first incident, with Austin Cindric, and then some other damage there racing through the field. And similar to what we saw in the Daytona 500, just had to claw his way through the field the rest of the day. So it really wasn't a great run for him, although he did manage to salvage a top 10, but not the best points day that it could have been there, certainly under the circumstances. But then to get down to the end of the race here and have it decided by a couple of restarts, not just one, and some tire strategy at the very end of it. Daniel Suarez hanging on with older tires and excelling, having fantastic restarts, getting through turns 1 and 2 very quickly. Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell bouncing off each other at one point for position. The 600 is like that. You're by the end of the longest race of this year, at least distance-wise, you're going to have so few drivers really separate themselves from everybody else that, and you're going to have so much attrition, although the attrition was a little bit low at the beginning of this here with just a few drivers out of the event, but certainly drivers that were out of contention, multiple laps down. Austin Dillon having some problems there towards the end. And then ultimately some wrecks towards the end, eliminating drivers like Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain, and others as well. It just really came down to the point where it was just really going to be a matter of survival. And even though this race ended up, about 29 laps short, still, they put on a fine show out there. Suarez earned that victory, held off the field on those couple of restarts. And honestly, as I tweeted this after the finish just a few minutes ago, after all the rain and everything that the crowd has been through this entire weekend, and I'm sure it was just as marshy in the infield as it was at Watkins Glen just a couple of weeks ago, probably best to just let's just let well enough alone and just wrap up the race from here. It would have been great to have the race keep going. We've seen NASCAR do that. We know they're committed to that when they can. We saw that at Daytona when Austin Dillon won, when the whole field wiped out in the first couple corners. But at some point here, enough's got to be enough. And this was already, I think, such a challenging weekend with the weather and a challenging weekend with everything else that was going on that was to be the case there too. So fine job by everybody involved to put on the racing this weekend, to put forward the best competition they could with varying degrees of success, admittedly, between the O'Reilly Series and the Truck Series in particular. But the Cup race here was certainly the best of the NASCAR races this weekend. Had some intrigue in here in how it played out. So that was good that worked out there in the end. So again, Daniel Suarez, your race winner over Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin in the third spot, Tyler Reddick and Kyle Larson rounding out your top 5. Ty Gibbs just outside the top 5 and 6 was very positive in his interview. Watching that just a few minutes before starting the show here, I agree with the consensus that Carl Edwards and Corey LaJoie were talking about just how positive he sounded. It's like, oh yeah, we'll get him again next week. Just think of the load off that it's been for him since winning at Bristol. We saw that even in the moment when he was celebrating with Coach Gibbs there on the front straightaway. That was a massive load off his shoulders. And he'd already been getting closer and closer to that first win these last couple of years. And I think we're really fully realizing that now. He's a weekly contender out there, and it's going to be very tough here the rest of this season, I would certainly say. Ryan Blaney in the 7th spot, Joey Logano in 8th, couple of Penske cars in the top 10. William Byron touched on him in the 9th spot, and a fine job by the next two drivers here. I think were the big surprises of the event. Zane Smith, we've seen moments here like at Bristol and some other races here and there where Zane Smith in that 38 car just find a way to be in the mix. Even if his teammates are struggling, unfortunately, we haven't seen Noah Gragson have the same good fortune. And lately, Todd Gilliland's kind of been on a downward slide in a couple of these races. Hopefully, they both get some venues that things can turn around for him. But Zane Smith has been really solid. And I'd say ever since he had that runner-up finish for Spire at Nashville a couple of years ago, and then found his way back over to Front Row, where he won the Truck Series championship before, it's just worked out very well for him. And I was very impressed with him in this. He was in and around there the entire night. And then right behind him, in the same breath, Shane Van Gisbergen, up there leading laps of this race in the closing stages of this event. And it wasn't like he took about a 20th place car and then got himself up there and was actually, it's like, what the hell is he doing up here? Hasn't done anything all day. No, he was in and around the top 10 most of the race's second half and was just outstanding out there. I mean, this is a race where it's so challenging to even stay on the lead lap for as long as this race is, much less stay within sight of the leaders in such a position that you could even take the lead at some point. Often a driver is able to just control the race and you're just kind of along for the ride. At least that's how it looks to me from a viewer's standpoint. But Shane did a remarkable job out there and is continuing to show the consistent improvement that he's been able to make on the ovals this year. And again, we saw him win the Watkins Glen race with such ease that we all expect. We got San Diego and Sears Point coming up, where he's certainly going to be another contender again. And we'll see where Connor Zilic stacks up in both of those races as well. That will be very eye-opening. But on these ovals, yes, he's had moments that have still been off. Back at Kansas and Las Vegas, he was back in the field there. But here, he's really turned things around, and I would encourage people to take a more close look at him for drivers to watch from 1 week to the next here. And you may not know where that's going to be. Zane Smith actually kind of lump him into the same section there too. I have Badger here in my laps. You may hear him snoring on this as well. But fantastic job by Shane as well. Just outside the top 10 there. At the same time, Ricky Stenhouse in 12th after getting a contract extension. Good effort for him. Eric Jones, Michael McDowell, Brad Keselowski bring out your top 15. Cole Custer in 16th. We saw him escape one of those wrecks entering turn 3, and good to see him get a good finish after a miserable outing over in Dover, where he got eliminated on the that first accident out there. I had a real difficult time trying to kind of salvage anything positive really to talk about his season this year, but a top 20 finish out here in such a prestigious race on the lead lap, that's definitely a positive on their side here as well. Corey Heim in the top 20 here in the 19th spot, so a good effort for him. Then you go a bit further back and you see other drivers that were struggling on the other end of it here. Catherine Legg had a loose wheel. It cost her a couple of laps with a penalty. Was 12 laps down at one point, but did finish the race in the 31st spot there, so a decent job for her. Still completing the double. Not all the laps of the double, but completing it. And you know what? Doing that the same day, John Andretti struggled with it as well when he did both of them there. Not everybody's going to be Tony Stewart. What Stewart accomplished in 2001, and we'll chronicle that in 500 days here in a couple of episodes, was absolutely remarkable. And it's exceptional and points to Stewart himself just being plain exceptional. But what Catherine Legg did today was still absolutely deserving of praise and accomplishment there. To qualify for both these races in very different cars, compete in them the exact same day, obviously would have rather things, gone the right way in the IndyCar race. But again, really both the major incidents that she was involved in really weren't really her fault. In the IndyCar race, had to spin to avoid running into Ryan Hunter-Reay. It was certainly preferable to just plowing into him, and it could have been a really serious accident for the both of them. And then in the Cup race, having the loose wheel, stuff just happens on pit road. And with this many pit stops here in the Cup race, you're going to have that at the same time. So, again, I think that was a mission accomplished for her, and I hope she does it again and attempts it again. I love the way she approached it, where she just kind of surprised us all and said, hey, I'm just going to do this. And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, everybody's finally talking about her here. Unfortunately, a lot of that buzz tapered off with the news from this last week, but not all of it. And it was good to see that there was more attention still on her effort there at the same time. Back in the field here, further back, Chase Briscoe had a good run in this race, but just has continued to have absolutely terrible luck, much like the mechanical issue that he had with the transaxle at Coda. Then he had the last place finish with the blown tire and the crash at Phoenix. Comes into this race, looked very strong, led 3 different times in this event, but ends up dropping back to the 34th spot there. So a terrible break for him being collected in an accident. I think that one there, him and Chris Buescher on the back straightaway. I agree with the assessment there on the broadcast that the two drivers just, were doing a racing move at the exact same time. But unfortunately, that just hooked them right into each other and they took each other out. And that's just the kind of thing that happens, especially at the end of the race where attention spans are worn out and things of that nature at the same time too. Again, a really challenging deal there for a lot of the other drivers in the field. Timmy Hill had probably the scariest moment in this race, although the first incident between Zilich and Cindric was certainly up there. But another onboard fire in another Ford after we saw this last year with so many other teams, really these last few years in this next-gen car. Didn't we come up with a solution to these rocker box fires? Didn't they make a big point of making this graphic on NBC a while back showing that it used to be that rubber would collect in the rocker panel, and then against the exhaust pipes, it would just randomly catch on fire? And they said, okay, well, now we're going to put this little metal plate in here, and now the rubber is going to stop before it gets to the exhaust pipes, and so it won't cause these fires. And then right after that, what do we see? We see Josh Berry having a fire at Bristol last year. We see this one today, where the fire actually was encroaching in the cockpit of the number 66 as he was slowing down into the pit stall. Thankfully, he got out of the car okay. Glad to hear that Timmy Hill is okay, but we need to acknowledge that this is unacceptable. And as I mentioned on social media there, I don't think that it's right to just have the broadcast, even with Prime and the things they do well, and they do many things well. I'm very disappointed that they still don't hold NASCAR to task for these fires. I don't like when Steve Letarte in particular takes one of these incidents and then just goes out there and says, oh, well, the rocker box, they can catch fire, and rubber collects in there. And it sounds like it's a feature. It's like, no, that's a defect. Fire is one of the most dangerous things that these drivers face. It's one of the biggest fears they've had. And at Charlotte's history, not all that long ago, back in 1964, we lost Fireball Roberts in a fire in a very horrible situation on the back straightaway. And ultimately, NASCAR, even in that early era, actually adjusted the cars to create the flexible fuel cell, which we still have in the sport today. That kind of approach needs to happen with this. And I think they need to take a much more serious look at it, especially the fact that it's continuing to happen with Ford teams in particular. I can't explain why that is the case. I don't know why there's this cavalier attitude about these, and no matter what the broadcast is. I think it should have been, the moment we had with Chris Buescher at the Indy Road Course a few years ago, where he had to literally sit in the cockpit because if he climbed out of the car, he would have been parked for the race and, be completely, consumed here by fire extinguishing material in the car. That's ridiculous, and we're reaching a point where that could get extremely dangerous. That's why the term playing with fire is a metaphor for just being too reckless. And I think that's where NASCAR really needs to lock that down. I'd like to believe they're working on it, but every time I see another one of these things happen, I really question that. And I think especially now with, again, what's been in the news here, we should take driver safety and driver health, I would say, very seriously. So I hope that that's something that comes of this. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but it needs to. It really does need to, and it's long overdue. In terms of the last place finish battle, this was Connor Zilich, unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection. Another unfortunate incident for him, which is particularly bad given the fact that he'd already had this great run at Dover last week in the All-Star race. Finally getting some positive momentum here. Came into this event running a triple header, was a contender in the truck race, contender in the O'Reilly race. Once again, showing, that he's just as strong of a competitor as ever. And coming into this event here, I'm sure looked to, have a good run out here. But unfortunately, Austin Cindric spins out of about 11th place, backs into the wall. Zilich goes down to the apron, is with some other drivers and trying to get by. Takes it just a little bit too fast, and the back of the car comes around, ends up slapping the front of Cindric's car, causing heavy damage to both of them. Shock ended up dropping out of the back of the 88 car on the way back to pit road, and it ends up being a short evening for the both of them there. And still some scoring issues even between NASCAR and the broadcast here. I'm still seeing Zilich in last place, both of them classified with 52 laps completed. We'll see if the results that are posted in a little bit later get any other information there at the same time. But so far, at least how I've started the article, it's going to be a Zilich feature, pending, of course, the results of post-race inspection there as well. But by and large, again, a lot of what was happening in this race went very well. It was a great crown jewel event. Had great battles up front. We saw 3 wide battles there between Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, and I think it was Chase Briscoe at the time. They looked really good up there. and really put on an interesting show there up at the front. So kudos to them there as well. This leads us back to, again, the other story, the main story again from this week. Did not mention Austin Hill in this sense here, the driver that got brought in to take the place of Kyle Busch, and of course taking the place systematically here, not literally. Obviously, there is going to be no replacement for Kyle Busch. He was an exceptional driver, an exceptional competitor, and as I said on my post the other day, an ambassador to the sport. And the sport would have been in a different place in the future had he lived than where it is going to be without him. And some individuals in the sport are of such consequence, and he was certainly one of those. Austin Hill doing the best he could under the circumstances, finishes the race, looks like a lap down there in the 27th position. They renumbered the car, the number 33, and sent him back out there. Very solemn moment in the garage area as his car was unloaded. And as I discussed and as people certainly saw, both in person and what we saw on social media, definitely shades of 2001 and heartbreaking that Richard Childress Racing has had to now do this twice in 25 years with two equally, I think it's fair to say, two equally popular and notable drivers. Kyle Busch was no Dale Earnhardt. He lived in a very different time period, had a very different style, had a very different fan base, but again, found his way over to Richard Childress Racing and tried to make the best of that. Again, seeing that moment, it definitely brought back those memories. And I hope it was very difficult, and as I'm sure it was evident there and very similar, I think, to everybody really at that moment. It was difficult to say really anything in the immediate aftermath of it, and it's still challenging now, and it's going to take some time, even though we now have a bit more information and we have a little bit more to work with as to what happened that led to Busch's death. It's still something that it's not just a fluff and fold and we can move on. It's like, no, not any more than when Steve Park won at Rockingham the week after Earnhardt's death. That's just not the case. And I do hope, however, that the video that I posted on the Twitter feed here on Thursday was of some use. Because, I've been through it as a fan. I see Brian's in here as well. I know he's been through much more than I have in this as well, of experiencing what happens when one of the big names isn't there anymore. And it's not just an injury, and the driver's just that something awful has happened. And that was very much the case in here. I think there was definitely the disbelief. Trying to, I first saw the post on Thursday coming back from lunch, and I thought it was a shit post. I thought it was something where somebody's like, this isn't funny. Like, why the hell would somebody post this? I'd heard about him being, admitted to the hospital earlier in the day, but it's like, okay, well, at least he got to the hospital. Maybe something works out. But then to have that moment and you see something in there and then it turns out it's really something that serious. Complete disbelief. And obviously, from seeing everybody else's reactions, very much the same. But again, I went through about probably a dozen takes of trying to just come up with some kind of thing to say, because everybody else was very vocal and doing tributes. And I got a lot of requests already to do a video on his career. I would certainly not rule that out. I don't feel like the time is quite right at the moment. But I think in the future, yes, absolutely. This is, his career is, more than enough to talk about, at any point here. But I hope there was some use in the video. I don't know how clear I made it, but what I was trying to clear up, and I think it did become clear. I hope it did, at least, was you have the moment when you hear the news, and much like people that remember Dale Earnhardt's death, or further back to Davey Allison or Alan Kulwicki, you remember where you were in that moment, and you're kind of in your mind just trying to get your mind around. It's like, oh my God, there's this and there's that, and there's where he is in his career and his family and all that. But then the next phase, the thing that I was trying to kind of get my hands around in that video was when you actually get to the next track, and when they unload the car and somebody else's name is on the roof rail, or probably a rookie stripe on the back. And we don't have rookie stripes really anymore, but that's usually the case. They put a newcomer in there, different paint scheme, and you see everybody else's reaction to it, and you see everybody wearing buttons, and you see the graphics on the infield grass. You see all that, all these other things that show two things at the same time: that yes, it's not a bad dream, that it is real, and yes, the sport is going to move forward. And both those things just feel terrible. And I was trying to articulate that in the video. I don't know how well I did, but I hope I did, because for me, those are what really stand out. I know there were a lot of comments, and I saw a lot of comments from a lot of younger fans that were like, well, why are we even doing a race this weekend? We shouldn't even do the race. Or, oh, let's not even have the team out there, or let's, and that has happened before. Davey Allison, Robert Yates Racing, they didn't run the next week at Pocono. Of course, there's a famous image of Alan Kowicki's team and the hauler leaving at Bristol after the plane crash. And both those teams coming back with Jimmy Hensley driving the 7. You remember that from after Allen. And then also Robbie Gordon coming in to eventually drive Davey Allison's car at Talladega. And NASCAR Man History's video discusses more of that there as well. There are different ways that this gets handled. But again, if you think more recently to Dale Earnhardt's in 2001, that even in that moment there as well, with a driver that was as central to the sport's history, that had as big of a fan base as he did, that they were going to change the paint scheme. They're going to run a number that didn't have a 3 in it. They're going to run that white car out there and just run the race and just keep going. And that is, I really wanted to prepare people as best I could, because that is hard. That is so hard. Because it makes it seem like people don't care, but obviously they do. And you see that. So, yeah. I hope that helped. I hope that helped, because, I've been there too. And I know, again, there's other people on here that that do that too. But yeah, that was the other part of it. And of course, yeah, the other part of it is you're going to hear all the stories. You're going to get all the tributes, and and I think the other part of it too is you're hearing stories that we never heard before. I mean, there's one thing that you see the footage that we've all seen, and him doing the bow and all that. But much more the stories you don't hear, that's what makes it tolerable. And again, I wish I could say that it just goes away, but it really doesn't. It's like when you lose a family member, you care about these people, and that's what happens. And there's some that say that, you shouldn't get to know these drivers in that way or feel that way. But, a whole generation has come up since Earnhardt's passing. And thankfully, you guys have, if you are watching here on the show, you have not had to experience that. You've been through a time where the sport's safety has been way better than it's been. That's why I hammer on this fire thing in the next gen car. We don't want to regress. We don't want to create new problems or pre-existing issues here again. That cannot happen. We got very close. The Ryan Newman situation in 2020 was very close to this. And that was about the closest we've had there. And, sadly, we've had other tragedies as well. Greg Biffle, of course, and his family over this winter. We lost Michael Lynette, other tragic circumstances. And again, it's not to say that those don't matter at all. I mean, they absolutely do. And that's very much the case. But when it's an active full-time driver, there is that extra layer of the sport itself and how it responds to it. And, that's the other part of it. So, it does get better to an extent, but I hope people understand that, especially after now we have that race in the books. So, to kind of put a bow on this part of it here, if you still feel like this race shouldn't have happened, or they shouldn't have had the team out there, or if they ran car number 8 instead of the 33, or if they had Kurt Busch do a pace lap or something, or if they did something different. The unfortunate reality is whatever approach they took, it would not have made it. It would not have made things easier. It really wouldn't. Believe me, because every one of those things has been done at one point or another, and it's never been any easier. It really hasn't. Gosh, I mean, think back to JD McDuffie and that one there. You had a driver, a team, an organization that it was just gone. You had people that were carrying stickers on the cars, but there was no relief driver. There was no, anything like that. And, and again, it's just, that was what the situation worked out at that point. That was just the way it was. And obviously, in Kyle's situation with the team that was organized around it, and Childress and his career and the business he's putting forward and the people he's working with, obviously that was not going to happen. They were going to get the team back out there, and do the very best they can, because they're racers. They want to compete, as best they can. So, that was a different way to look at that. So, yeah. So again, I hope there was some help on that, because, again, it's not easy, certainly for anybody to make sense of this. And, again, I've kind of, not talked directly about, the natures of this. I think there is another aspect of this I do want to hit on, and I was going to save this probably for later, but I think I'm going to lead into this, now. But, yeah, let's see, just checking on my note here on this. I think the other thing that has come of this story is certainly, the news that has come out about the cause of death, that he had a case of pneumonia that had worsened over time into sepsis, and there were medical complications from that, and that claimed his life. I think the big thing that could be taken from that, as I mentioned again in the same video, we do find out more details, and hopefully have a situation where maybe others could avoid what did happen to him. I do believe there is such a thing as working too hard, working yourself to exhaustion, and people, luckily there are discussions about mental health that have really, picked up a lot, and people talking, more about that and more openly about it. And that's good. And it's almost strange though, at the same time, that the physical health part seems like it doesn't get that much attention, at least in terms of just day to day, just checking in on things. One thing I wanted to mention on this subject, and again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't comment on, specific conditions and things like that. What I can say is, from the position of somebody who's been more or less a hypochondriac, most of his life, one service that I've found very helpful, and I know not everybody has access to this, so I know that's challenging, but if you do have a form of insurance or some kind of medical plan there, I think advice nurses are tremendously helpful. I didn't know they existed until I worked at Kaiser, years ago. I used to work there back when we started doing this show about 6 years ago. And, those are tremendously helpful, that if there's ever something that you just kind of concerned with, like, ooh, I shouldn't be feeling like this, or, oh, I don't know what this is or something. I think probably the worst thing you can do is try to Google it and try to look online, because that will just scare the hell out of you. And that's not going to do any good. I know WebMD and stuff like that have existed in the past. I think, if at all possible, the best resource is to speak with an advice nurse, to at least get somebody that could be, okay, well, it's probably this, it's probably that. Either, they recommend something over the counter, or if it is something that's more serious and you need to be seen in the emergency room or something, those are open 24 hours a day. And again, even if you don't have insurance or something like that, in the emergency room I worked at, I used to be the registration clerk. And what we would always do as part of that, pretty much for everybody that walked in, even if they had insurance, they always had a medical financial assistance program. So I know people always get concerned about the lack of transparency in certain medical services. They don't show how much it's going to be, and you're worried about that on top of already worrying about your health. But every place I've been to, they've had some similar program to that I think is very helpful. And I hope this puts some people's mind at ease in their own lives, because I think personally I have made use of those services before. I won't go too far into that, but they are tremendously helpful. But again, I know at the same time that we are living in a time where it's very difficult for people to get health insurance, where it's very difficult for people to be open about their health. And indeed, probably situations where people use the emergency room as their doctor. They don't have regular doctors, things of that nature. It's a complicated issue. There's a lot of political elements to it, and financial elements. And obviously in a time now where everything's so expensive, believe me, I get it. That's another part of it. But if there's at all a service like that, I think I'm a big advocate of advice nurses. I think they've been tremendously helpful. So maybe you have some plan through your job, or if it's something particular, there's like Obamacare, what existed before, or whatever your plan is, really look into that, because you may have a service like that's available. Usually it's like a 1-800 number, and they're 24/7. And if there's anything you're dealing with that's just like, ooh, that's kind of strange or something like that, that's a good service. The other alternative, and I know this isn't as big in California, but I've seen it in other states. We travel across country, especially in like Texas, urgent care clinics. Those are always fantastic. A lot of times, unfortunately, they're not always 24-hour services. They don't always have the best, they're not always open all hours, but that's the other alternative. If you don't have a regular doctor, there's other ways they could work with that. And again, financial assistance is usually available in those services too. Just look into those as well. I was amazed when we went to Texas the first time how many private urgent care clinics were out there. They were just everywhere. They were everywhere in like every strip mall that we would drive by or something. And it's great. I mean, they should be that accessible. They should be on like just about every street corner there. And I think those are, very helpful at the same time. So, again, from what we've heard, and it's horrible to hear this from what happened with Kyle Busch here, and certainly for his family and for his parents and everybody. But I think that would be a good thing for people to take from this, is to really, as Benny Parsons said. I remember when Benny Parsons said this in Martinsville, tragically towards the end of his life. He just said, "Look, get yourself checked. Like if something's off, get yourself checked. Like don't wait." And if nothing else, and look, don't be afraid to feel silly. If you go in there and you find out that it's nothing too serious, you come out and they're just like, "Oh, well, come on, it's just this." Don't be afraid of that. I'm a firm believer at the same time that a peace of mind is worth something. It certainly drops your blood pressure. I'll tell you that. So, that would be another aspect of it. And I don't mean to make it sound like I'm making light of it. Quite the opposite. I think that, I want to encourage people to not be afraid of that. It's not, so again, I just think that physical health should go the same direction as the mental health debate has gone, which again, I think the mental health thing has made a lot of good progress, but the physical side needs to do it too. Used to be in 2001, there were all those commercials that tied in with the Mark Martin sponsor there that were having men's clinics at the racetracks. I mean, something like that should come back. I think that was a great idea. Just give people a baseline. The more the more you can adjust to things. And again, but I know that's something. I know for some people that's a luxury, or it's just something that they just can't think about because they're trying to take care of other things. But I believe me from my own experience, there are services out there that help with that. And I think that would be a big thing to take from it. So, yeah. So again, I hope that helps too. Didn't mean to go too far down that road, but, when I heard the discussion of this, once we heard about what led from this, that was the first thing that came to mind. So I think that was a big thing to talk about there. Um, yeah. Okay. There we go. Yeah. Urgent care clinic. Yeah. That was the other part of that I wanted to bring up. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to hang on to that there too. So, yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm just kind of checking out the comments here too. Yeah. And there's other places. Yeah. You also got to look for, yeah. I mean, the system, I get it. I hear you. I know that health insurance and the way it's set up there is a whole other hot button issue. And yeah, you got places that are maybe not as reputable as others. That's where, yeah, you kind of look around, you shop around, you try to find the best fit for you because, there's a lot that's out there. And, yeah, that's another place to, place to kind of look at that too. But again, I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers for it. I just think that these are good leads to look into if they're available. And if you feel that some of it's not available, you'll be surprised what other resources are out there. Again, I lost count of how many medical financial applications that I would give out back when I was working as a registration clerk. And a lot of them got approved and it would show up. We would pull up their thing and it would show up. It would say, nope, don't collect copays. And then boom, that was it. And, how wonderful is that? And, that's, and again, I can't speak for other, companies. I no longer work with Kaiser there, so I feel comfortable bringing that up. But I think even if I did work still with Kaiser, they'd probably be fine with me still bringing that up because I think it's a program that they encourage a lot of people to sign up for. So again, there's other things out there, and I think that's important because I think in this case here, yeah, I mean, I think Kyle, so I'm so sorry, Kyle in this, just worked himself too hard. I think he was just, I mean, the fact that this happened apparently at the simulator and he was, of course, going through a difficult period here at Richard Childress, not performing to the level that he wanted to. Yes, he won the pole at Daytona, but, there is such a thing as, you got to take care of yourself. You have to. And unfortunately, you gotta really, really take it by the hands. Somebody's not going to show you most of the time. So you got, unfortunately in that case, yeah, you do have to do a little bit of homework on it there. But you'll be surprised at what's out there. So I hope that helps. If that just helps a couple people, it may not apply to you. And that's okay. You can take that, with a grain of salt, but, I know personally that those have been helpful. So, yeah, just something to kind of put out there. But, all of this is in and around, of course, the story itself. And yeah, what the sport is going to look like from here and not having Kyle Busch out there and everything. I mean, again, that's something that we're going to still gradually be understanding. It still feels so absurd to think of him in the past tense. I mean, for God's sake, the guy won the truck race just last week. And I know myself, as I mentioned in my video, being critical of him running those Busch and those truck races. I still have my feelings on the practice in general, but certainly nothing, I mean, my goodness, under his career and his particular circumstances and what he was trying to do there. Look, there's other elements to it and everything. And obviously, having him here is certainly more important than him not running trucks in O'Reilly races. If I even need to say that, of course. Yeah, it just shows how much things change. It really does. I mean, again, Earnhardt was the same way. You had people out there that couldn't stand Dale Earnhardt. That nevertheless, yeah, when he was gone, it's just like, oh my God, it was just as earth shattering to them, and again, with Kyle, that was really the only thing I really disagreed with. But again, I didn't really like anybody that was doing the O'Reilly and Truck Series things. If it was Jerry Nadeau doing it, I wouldn't have agreed with him doing it. So to me, it was less about the driver themselves and really more about the practice. But that's the other part of it. So, again, there's other things going on behind the scenes that you and I and everybody else are just not aware of. And unfortunately, we got a real, unfortunately, a piercingly bright look at that this last week. And, that's a hard thing to deal with at the same time. But it's nowhere near what the family is dealing with, to say the least. So once again, my condolences to Samantha, to Braxton, to Lennox, to the parents, to Kurt, to the rest of the family there. But it's encouraging to see from what we saw in the broadcast today that they're going to have plenty of support, and they're going to continue to, and that's good. So, so there's that part of it too. To pivot a little bit, and we may talk more about Kyle here. It's kind of inevitable from this. I'll talk a bit about the the O'Reilly and the Truck Series races, and we'll talk about the Indy 500, which again was a glorious race, a glorious finish. There were even some great tributes to Kyle in that race too, which was unbelievable. You had the one of the teams changing their car number to his font and everything. Just tremendous deal here. But I'm going to step aside for just a moment, and then I'll come back, and we'll get into all of that, and then we'll do trivia and Kevin Schwarzy's book as well. So we'll get some more information on that very soon. So stay tuned, folks. I'll be right back, and we'll get into that, okay? Okay, we're back. All right. So, again, solid 600. Glad to have Prime back. I think they're going to be very good here in the remaining races this year. Let's get into the O'Reilly and the Truck Series really quick, and then we'll finish. We'll finish this portion here with the Indy 500. I don't have too much to say about O'Reilly and trucks, and I think a lot of you probably feel about the same way, given how chaotic everything was this weekend. We did get some last place finishers very decidedly with DNFs in both those races, but definitely some other elements here outside of it to definitely talk about. First of all, let's go into the O'Reilly race, which ended up being the first race of the weekend on Saturday night. Ross Chastain pulling off a very controversial win where you had a race getting started. They got the first 33 laps in, started to have some rain move in, had a 4.5 hour delay from the rain, just unavoidable. They had to do that. They were going to have the truck race after it had already been postponed from Friday, and then from Saturday morning, where it was going to be Saturday is going to be like 5 in the morning Pacific. I was checking my radar that morning. I'm like, man, there's no way they're getting this thing in. So we moved on to Saturday evening there. They have this delay. They get the race started again. By then, fog is moving in. The spotters could barely see anything in turns 3 and 4. And indeed, that's where pretty much we had one of the biggest accidents in that race there, where Brent Cruz and Harrison Burton and Brandon Jones tangled up there, ultimately leading to Burton getting his first last place finish of this season, where he was just wiped out in a wreck with a couple other cars out there. And the race just still kind of pushing forward there from there. But at the same time, Dawson Cram had an engine failure. This was, from what I heard, rumored to be the last time that the Harmon team is going to be working in tandem with the Joey Gase effort, running the number 35, but basically as a Mike Harmon car. I don't know if it's just the increased speeds with the cooler temperatures or whatever the situation was. But, yeah, you had a situation there where the 35 oiled down the track. And with Carson Hocevar and others watching from turns 1 and 2, everybody slid into the outside wall, reminiscent of the 2001 All-Star race, and clobbered the outside wall. Chastain ends up getting the win from Jesse Love, and they just call the race at that point. And so only after 91 of 200 laps, the race ends up being called. It was already very late at night. They already had the truck race moved to the next morning. And yeah, made for a very long day for fans out there. Again, I think, I don't think I hammered this enough at the beginning. Kudos to the fans that came out to this race this weekend. My God, they went through it this weekend with, not only the tragedy, but then the rain and then these several long days. I'm seeing Brian already mentioned it. Yeah, nothing like 17-hour days at the track. Exactly. I've been pessimistic about this in the past, but also I would agree. Kudos to the broadcast crews out there that were dealing with that. They were out in the elements and dealing with that, all day on, probably all day on Friday, a good amount just to lead into it there when everything got washed out. Certainly all day Saturday, late into the night, and then, bright and early on Sunday to try to squeeze things in before the Indy 500. A crazy deal. It's amazing we still got 3 races in and didn't have any of them conflict with the Indy 500, which of course Fox is going to lean into because that's their new toy and they're going to put all their effort into that. They got Rob Gronkowski out there riding in a helicopter. So yeah, they're not going to preempt that for anything. So yeah, they're going to try to, it's unfortunate to be in that position. But that's what we got here too. So Chastain wins. Nobody's particularly happy. We got, just a mess. I mean, at least there were some guys that had some runs they salvaged. Leland Honeyman coming back to the O'Reilly series, getting in the top 20. Same with David Starr, LeVar Scott, and Austin Green kind of turning around a series of bad runs, especially for Scott. I mean, he's really been struggling here through this first part of the spring. So it was good to see him get a top 20 finish out there with the Alpha Prime effort there too. Austin Green's been starting to pick things up the last couple weeks. We saw more of him out at Dover last week, and it's good to see him kind of pick things up. But again, back in the field, some hard hits. Sam Mayer clobbered the wall So a rough day for him, the Haas factory team, when he had a really fast car out there. And it was just a mess. It was just a complete mess, but they got the race in. And it's just on to the next one. Sometimes, I think there really are points where it's just a matter of just getting it done and moving to the next one. I think it was clear when this race was getting pushed as late as it was that they weren't going to be able to squeeze the truck race in that night. It would have been absurd to push it late into the morning, especially with all the fog that was there. It reminded me so much of what we did at Darlington a few years ago when they had the hurricane that was coming and they had to squeeze the Southern 500 in before. Yeah, just a mess. So, but hopefully people didn't have too much stuff tore up, although there were a lot of guys that hit the wall there at the end of that thing. But yeah, that ended up being kind of the story from there. I mean, obviously the Richard Childress teams were trying their best to win for Kyle in here, and everybody very much wanting to at the same time. And there was going to be, I mean, that part of it actually kind of reminded me a lot of 2004, back after the Hendrick plane crash. And you had all the Hendrick teams competing against each other in Atlanta, fighting tooth and nail to try to win that race. And Jimmy Johnson pulling that off. Yeah, that was very similar to that there at the time. And I was about to say Kyle Busch was on there, but that was a year before. I mean, well, I guess he still had the 84 car. I'm trying to remember. I think he had the 84 car in the race. I know the fall Atlanta race had a really, really competitive qualifying group in there. And I know Kyle missed a couple races when he was driving the CarQuest car, but I think he was in and around the mix there at that time. But that was, I don't know, that was a whole other deal there too. But yeah, I mean, certainly the competitiveness of these different teams, looking to win. And yeah, it seemed like the frustrations were very high after that was called off as quick as it was. Ideally, I mean, I think in both this case and the truck race, there's debate about could NASCAR have done anything different? Well, I mean, they could have started the race earlier, conceivably, but the weather was just so bad, and they, and they really wanted to make sure to get Cup Series cars on track for practice and all that. That's going to really hold the top priority, and you're going to have that element there too. So. I don't think there's really much they could have done under the circumstances. And moving times is tricky because you got to let the fans know. And, when are the gates going to be open? And, are you going to have security there and all that? All those logistics are tricky. I'm surprised they were able to get the truck race moved as many times as they did for the same reason. But I think that's another part of it. So some races, it's just a matter of just getting through it and getting on to the next one. And I think this O'Reilly race was just an example of it. But I will concede it was a mess. With the fog. Maybe they should have called it earlier. If they just ran some pace laps and got to the distance, I know you'd have a lot of people upset about it. I'm sure I would be complaining about it here too. It's just a no-win situation, I think, in that case. So, tricky deal there. But Chastain, your winner there over Jesse Love. Austin Hill in the third spot. William Sawalich, Corey Day in your top five. Connor Zilich, part of his triple header weekend in the sixth position. Ryan Sieg, Cole Custer, Carson Quapple, and Raja Karuth, your top 10. Moving on to the Truck Series race, pretty much the same deal. A bit of a better race than the O'Reilly one, although, again, we had kind of an issue with getting the full distance in. And this is even after the weather had pretty much cleared up. It was still overcast. Track was still very fast. You had these guys absolutely hanging on by their fingernails at the beginning. Seeing several trucks just trying to maintain control. Luke Baldwin, indeed, who ended up being your last place finisher, slapped the wall early, lost some laps from an unscheduled stop. Caution came out soon after to trap him, laps down, and then later on has the engine let go, and then another cockpit fire, like we saw in the Cup Series race tonight. Good to see Luke get out of the truck there as well. Ends up being your last place finisher. So the article for both that race and the Cup race today will be up on lastcar.info later tonight. I have both of them pretty much done, but we're going to wait till, of course, post-race inspection and then after the show to kind of get those up there as well. Luke Baldwin's fire was scary, but I would say not nearly as much as Corey Day's wreck on the back straightaway. I'm seeing the mentions here in the chat for sure. But look, I think, again, it was a just an awful situation. I think especially in that race there too, having Corey Day inherit the pole, from Kyle Busch based on the rule book to start up front, and then leading a lap there, and then immediately kind of dropping back in the pack there, and then still battling in the top 10, a ways into the event, gets hooked on the back straightaway. And probably the first time I'm thinking the Truck Series, like somebody flipping. I remember in 2005, like Todd Bodine and Rick Crawford flipped in like separate incidents. I have to really kind of search my memory as to how long it's been since seeing something like that. But thank goodness that he landed on all four wheels. And he did still have a nasty hit to that inside wall with the driver's side, and then bounced into traffic, collected a couple other trucks. I'm so glad he's okay, that he got back out of that thing. Really speaks again to the safety features in these trucks, but heartbreaker to see that truck tore up. I immediately got memories of Dale Jr. wrecking at Rockingham in '01. That was very much the same sensation. You just hoped that they would have a good performance out there. It wasn't going to fix everything, but it was going to be a moment where it'd be like, okay, you're pulling for the guy, certainly. And it just happened. It was just a racing deal. It wasn't anybody's fault. It wasn't Day's fault. It wasn't Giovanni's fault. They were just racing hard, and that's what happens. And you got to push hard to battle up there. And that's what we had. But I'm glad it wasn't any more serious than it was. It already was serious enough as it was. And I'd be surprised if NASCAR's not looking at that truck afterwards. I know they were taking a lot of good pictures of it there, and kudos to Steve Toronto and others, Budget Racing 51 as well, Small Budget Racing, and Matt Miller, who also provided some great pictures from this weekend and some great coverage there in the infield. They weren't the only ones. There was plenty of people there covering it, but those are the ones I was following the most this weekend, and they did a fine job there as well. And speaking of which, to cap all this off here on the Truck Series side, Eric Brennan, my goodness, what a breath of fresh air. Such fantastic commentary in the booth. Once again, handled the Kyle Busch tragedy with tremendous class and clarity. And, this is what happens when you get somebody in there that's not goofing around, that's not talking about, oh, it's this guy's birthday, and not caring about anything else out there, that handles this better. And I know it was just because Jamie Little was helping out Fox at the Indy 500, but that was a great decision to have Eric in the booth. I hope he continues to do as many truck races as possible. It actually felt I felt so invested in what was actually happening in the race. And also, he was reacting to things that were happening on the track. He dared do the one thing that Denny Hamlin says these broadcasters don't do, which is looking out a window. I can't believe that this is I was working on a script on this before Thursday, and this is going to be my big video that I was going to post here and just lean into what all the stuff that happened in that Watkins Glen broadcast for Fox, and this absurd gaslighting about, do you really think these broadcasters look out a window? It's like, well, do I think there's three of them shoulder to shoulder and they're all looking at a screen? I hope not. Can't one of them take a peek at some point? I mean, is that really that unreasonable? But I don't know. I mean, it just, I feel myself building momentum for it already here, but, maybe there'll be a more appropriate time to post it. But, yes, I think Eric did a wonderful job. Had a very clear call, and get a younger guy in there, get a younger, newer guy like him in there, some fresh blood in there. That's really going to give you a new feel for this. And again, it still amazes me that Prime or TNT or especially Prime really, kind of went halfway on that. I'm really amazed they didn't just start with like as many new things as possible. I mean, it's, again, Adam's solid, but does he really need to be doing the CW and Prime and, the TNT ones? Do we, can we not experiment a little? I mean, bring some new people in. Eric's a perfect example of it, and he's been primed and ready to go here for these, and he didn't miss a beat. When there was a fire, when there was some kind of incident, he was catching it, much like Junior did in the Prime broadcast tonight. That's what's needed. It's sorely needed, and I was very pleased with that too. The other part that I'm sure most people were not pleased about was, of course, the way this race ended. Now, again, if you think that this Truck Series race was going to keep going and butt up against the start of the Indy 500, you're kidding yourself. That was never going to happen. And unfortunately, this race had an absurd amount of cautions. It's just like every few laps, something was happening. Somebody would spin out, somebody hit the wall. It was an extremely unhinged Truck Series race, by and large. And a lot of mechanical issues, a lot of crashes, a lot of just everything that was happening out there. So it just took forever. And then you throw the stage cautions on top of it, and that's going to just make things go that much longer. I'm kind of surprised they got as close to 134 laps as they did. I hate it for the people in the stands because, of course, they're there and the weather is fine and they don't see any problem. They don't see why that this race is getting rushed to conclusion, and certainly not being happy about it finishing under caution, which we hardly ever see these days. Again, I don't honestly have that much of a problem with it as long as you're able to kind of race to the finish line, which we kind of had in the 600 tonight with Suarez, which again, I think helped that one out. It's just unfortunately didn't work out this way because the 38 wrecked on the backstretch. You're going to have a caution. It's like, it's like 11:58. They're not going to keep it going. And I thought they were pretty transparent about it. I'm not going to be somebody to make a bunch of excuses for NASCAR and something like this, but I honestly, I was not surprised, so the race was, again, kind of messy like the O'Reilly race, more so with the number of cautions rather than, weather and fog and all that. But clearly it wasn't going to go much further. They definitely wanted everybody to switch over to Fox and watch the pre-race and watch the Indy 500. And they should have, because the Indy 500 was absolutely fantastic. So we are going to push this aside and we are going to go ahead and get into the Indy 500. My God. What is it? I keep hearing these bumblings here and there about, the IndyCar series needs to have a new car and this car is not very good and da-da-da-da-da. And yet every year since 2011, and particularly every year since the DW12 came in, every one of these Indy 500s is great. Everybody's like, what about the one with Will Power in 2018? That was a good one too. I thought that was a great race. And it's not just the hype and the pomp and circumstance. This one here, you had the perfect balance. Unfortunately, we had some rain that caused some red flags along the way, but because of the weather, you just had everything was just almost about to boil over, because every moment past halfway, they were treating it like it was the last lap of the race. And you had all these lead changes, and you had nobody could stay up front. Everybody getting slingshotted there. You got all these storylines in there. David Malukas trying to get his first win ever in any race. And here he is in the same position Marco Andretti or J.R. Hildebrand were when they were getting down to the end. And again, the highs are high and the lows they can't be any lower. And finishing second is worse than finishing in last place. We saw this out of other drivers before, and we saw it out of Malukas, and I don't blame him for being sad about it, but damn it, he put on a show. He was fantastic, and he was part of the show, and everybody's going to remember that he's up there. I think everybody always worries that, are you going to get that good of a run again, ever? And ideally, you don't think that way. I'd like to believe that's the case. Yes, there's a long history of drivers that came so close to winning the Indy 500 and just never got another shot at it. You think about Hildebrand, you think about Scott Goodyear, you think about guys that never got a chance to race in it, like Alex Zanardi or Greg Moore. But when you're that close, if you're going to have the closest finish in the history of the sport, it's gonna be crestfallen for, whoever's the second place on that. But, who handled a situation very similar to that very well was Kurt Busch. When he had that side-by-side finish with Ricky Craven at Darlington, and the two of them were just celebrating. It's like, dude, that was awesome. I'd like to believe that was, possible here, but I know, obviously, that the Indy 500 holds such high regard and such history compared to even Darlington and even a race there that has such history in NASCAR, that not being a Southern 500, but being a spring race there regardless. The highs are going to be high, the lows are going to be low, and that's just a part of it there too. Connor Daly, my goodness, that 12th place finish does not even speak to how incredible he was out there, knifing his way through traffic and getting up there. My goodness, I thought for sure he was going to be able to pull that off. I had Santino Ferrucci in my pool for this one, just unofficially, just picking somebody to win. But Daly was so much fun to watch and was just knifing his way through it. And it's still fascinating to me that IndyCar though has this red flag rule that's basically about the same as what NASCAR had in the late 90s before the green, white, checkered rule, where they would throw a red flag if you had a wreck towards the last 10, 15 laps of the race. They're going to stop the race. And admittedly, that one wreck where you had, Coca-Cola's wreck there towards the end, that was a serious incident, and it probably would have been a red flag no matter what. But clearly also they were going to have, stopping the race to try to get the race to finish under the green flag. And then having a green and white checkered, similar to the 1993 race at Talladega, anything could have happened. And thankfully, it was a safe finish. You had a 3-wide battle right behind the leaders for the third spot, and the top two in a photo finish. And once again, much like with the truck race, what an amazing call by Will Buxton and the group there. I mean, I just saw the video where they added some music to the back of it. It honestly doesn't need the music. I mean, the man just nailed it. Like Townsend Bell was jumping in, and he was kind of moderating things, and James Hinchcliffe helping out there too. And Will just taking it by the horns and just doing just a perfect call that you just know in any of these montages that get made about the Indy 500, it's going to be right in there with Jim McKay calling the race, or Paul Page, or any of those other famous calls from the past there. The 92 finish with Little Al and Gordon Johncock and all those other classic races from the past there. It's tremendous. And the Indy 500 already, I mean, its reputation already speaks for itself. The history is incredible. I'd love to go. One of these days we're going to attend the 500. We're at least going to attend it. I don't know about doing media things there on that. I wouldn't leave that out. I did do some IndyCar stuff before. I need to brush up much more on it there with that if I'm going to approach that. But it just looks like a hell of a party, and it looks great. What a tremendous victory by Felix Rosenqvist there, to just get that drive, to shake off his teammate and catch the leader and outfox him all on the same straightaway. I mean, things couldn't have happened in more than just a few seconds in that gap. Things happen so quickly. These guys are like the gladiators of motorsports these days. They're right up there with the ones doing the Isle of Man TT. I mean, they're just they're just crazy. These guys are just nuts. And the health of that sport, at least the Indy 500, is in tremendously good hands, and it's great to see. I'm not as aware of all the politics and what's going on behind the scenes. I leave it to the David Lands and the others out in the world that can comment much more on that. But at least as a more casual viewer that doesn't really follow IndyCar nearly as close as I used to, this was wonderfully entertaining. And I really honestly couldn't ask for more. It was compelling. It was compelling. I love how the Indy 500 in recent years has resulted in this, where it seems like it's set up to have 5.5 pit stops. So, when you get to the end of it, you have some people that are stretching their fuel and trying just to get to the finish and maybe try to outfox everybody. They're about a half lap ahead of another group that is reeling them in, but they're way, way far behind, but they're on the preferred strategy from everybody else. And it's just a matter of if they're going to get these guys, or if there's going to be a caution that's going to bunch them all up and they're all going to pit, or, whatever it's going to be. And at that point, the knives come out, and then you got yourself a full-on war for the Borg Warner Trophy. I mean, it is absolutely compelling television. And it was great. It was great again today. I'm still beaming about it now, and it was, it was very exciting. I mean, heck, what can I say? I've been watching the finish over and over this afternoon, and again, the video that Fox put up there with Will Buxton's commentary was great. I love that he has the old Murray Walker microphone where he's holding it up on his upper lip there. Great. I mean, that's what I want. I mean, is it so hard to say, when it comes to commentary, just that? I want commentary that sounds like, we're like dodging missiles and stuff. We're like calling like an invasion or something, or I don't know, maybe not in a war context. There's enough of that in the world, but I mean, like, something where it matters. There's weight to what's happening. It's not just like we're watching traffic go by and it's like, and we're just kind of shooting the breeze while cars are going by. There's too much of this stuff that does that. And I've already hammered on that enough on this show. But in this, it's like this matters. Like, this is big. Like, if this guy does this, then this happens. If this guy does this, then this happens. And only one's going to do it. And they're running out of time and they're down to the stripe. And that's just the best. Exhilarating. So, yeah, good on Rosenquist, and good on everybody in the field. I mean, gosh, you had McLaughlin up there making some crazy passes. Great to see him bounce back from just what was a horrible outing for him in that last year, having the Roberto Guerrero-like wreck there on the pace laps. But coming back out there, and also surprising just to see who wasn't as much of a factor. I mean, Scott Dixon back in the order there, Marcus Ericsson, Castro Neves further back there as well. I mean, just, again, difficult days for some of the competitors out there, but nothing is guaranteed. I hate it for Alexander Rossi. That was heartbreaking. I was hoping that he'd really be able to turn things around in that backup car and overcome that ankle injury and everything. And, just the car just let him down, and that's just nothing you can do about it at that point. But without that heartbreak, those big moments aren't big enough. And that's needed to make it special. So, yeah, I was thoroughly entertained. I hate it for Catherine Legge as well. Mentioned her already, and tied in with the 600. But again, distinguished herself regardless on, making both runs at it here, and running both those races. And that's still a very, very select company. Very few even attempt to do both those races, to take on 1,100 miles and do whatever with it. That puts her in very elite company. So I'm glad that she did that, because now she's going to be in that same conversation. Didn't do it with just a fraction of the hype that Kyle Larson's had over the last couple of years. Not that Kyle Larson didn't deserve that hype. He did. It was fun to watch. I wish it would have gone better. I'm sure he does too. But that's just the way it goes, so really at that point, that's, you throw your hat in the ring, and that's the best you can do. So that's another part of it. So yeah, it's definitely another part of that at the same time. But, yeah, I thought it was good. And I think again, that was another, kind of interesting thing. So again, I'm seeing the other comments here as well, other issues with the Fox broadcast there. Again, I found it pretty easy to kind of, tune out any of the things that maybe weren't as good. I think when the highs were high enough, that felt entertaining enough to me. I think that was a big part of it. So that's another step that direction there. But, yeah, again, great Indy 500, and congrats to the winner. And, yeah, my goodness, a lot, that was going on here at the same time. So, we'll jump into our, sponsored segment here. This is, again, another sponsored episode of the, live stream here, sponsored by Kevin Schwarzy over at, HIE Publishing. This is the next to last one of these programs. Next week's show for Nashville is going to be a little bit of a different time. We might do it either late Sunday or on Monday. I have another obligation that day, but we'll definitely still do our last sponsored show for this segment here as well. But for this week, I want to feature another one of his books, and this one here is 1001 Facts You May Not Know About the ARCA series. So an interesting little fact book here that he produced, and a bit different from some of the others here. And literally just enumerates other stats here on drivers' histories or different elements of the sport. And again, kind of, I think what's great about this is it casts ARCA in a new light. Again, it's good crash course in the sport's history, where they're just kind of like, hey, did you know this? Did you know that? Where, again, it's not just on where the sport is these days, but everything that's happened up to this point. And also what was interesting in going through this is how many different drivers that I've seen show up as either last car champions or obscure Cup Series guys, had more extensive careers in ARCA. Of course, you think about Andy Belmont in that example, and what a tremendous career he had in ARCA outside of Cup. And in fact, there's another driver I'm doing a video on that's coming up here very soon that had very similar experience in that element here. For example, Graham Taylor was a driver that actually was one of the grocery getters for Jimmy Means in 1992. And he's actually mentioned here in this book being the 1989 Rookie of the Year in ARCA, and his son Larry owned a repair garage in Pennsylvania back in the 1990s. So again, details on Taylor have always been kind of hard for me to find because I usually don't get that much information on him because usually it's just start and park efforts that he did for Jimmy Means back in the early 90s, but other times it could pop up here as well. The Eddie Bierschwal comes up in here as well. Driver that ran the number 23 car back in the 90s at the same time. The had different Oldsmobile teams. Kyle Petty drove in his place in 1989 in the Daytona 500 when Petty missed the show after a wreck in the 125s. This one's probably more of a well-known statistic here, but driver Eddie Bierschwal and his dad and father owner Don Bierschwal are morticians by trade. They helped the McClures. Let's see, what was this here? This was something about this being involved in another family here as well. I think it actually relates to an earlier statistic here as well. Airport to watch his son race. Okay, so this one actually has a bit more tragic connotation on this one here. On Thursday, September 17th, 1992, Jeff McClure's dad, Billy Don or B.D. McClure, died after disembarking an aircraft in the airport on the way to watch his son race at Texas World Speedway the Thursday before in 1992. But driver Eddie Bierschwal and his dad and father-owned Don Bierschwal helped the McClures fly the body back to North Carolina and help with the funeral arrangements. So I thought it was just going to focus on just the fact that they were funeral morticians by trade there as well. But also, I mean, helped out other teams there at a time where certainly the sports dangers and indeed other things happening along the way were very much relevant as well. Let's see here. Also a stat here on Dick Trickle as well. Despite hundreds of Midwest victories, Dick Trickle only won one ARCA event, which was in Atlanta in 1991. So again, the great short tracker out there wins countless races on the short tracks, and ARCA itself running very challenging tracks like Flat Rock and Toledo and these other places, still having that deal there too. I've seen people already mention Eddie Bierschwal there too. Right on. Yeah. See, there we go. See Eddie having a different element there too. And we got some interesting pictures here as well. Let's see. We got Loy Allen Jr. shows up in this point here, back during his early career. You recall him getting mentioned in the other video there on Alan Kowicki's history. Let's see. I saw another one here. Where was another one? Here we go. This is interesting. So again, and a lot of connections to even bigger names in NASCAR history as well. Reportedly, this is number 472 in here. Reportedly, Jeff Gordon once said that the late owner-driver James Hilton was the most gifted mechanic in NASCAR history. So again, a lot of respect throughout the field there for competitors that were in ARCA for many years there too. Let's see. Here we go, about the Dillon brothers as well. Ty Dillon won the 2011 ARCA championship, but older brother Austin could only get 2 runner-ups in 2009 at Michigan and Iowa as his best. So again, you think about Austin Dillon and, of course, his feature in the Emp Lemon video there, but Ty Dillon actually had more success in ARCA. So again, it's hard to tell, how that translates from one time to another, but that would be another one there too. I was trying to see if there was a Kyle Busch stat in here, and so I think there was, because I know he kind of developed through there about the same time. Bob Donner, we got Ramo Stott here as well. But again, kind of interesting. It's enough to get kind of lost in it. The last few times I've kind of checked this out. It's some of these string together into a story here, but you got other ones that are different parts that stand out. Let's see. Okay, nope, we got that one. That's different. Owner-driver, the late Kerry Teague, was a TV repairman. Well, there's the one. The Kerry Teague, I think, was... he drove for the Sadler brothers, I think, back in the 90s. I'm trying to remember if he drove the 03 car that Team USA won in 92. I think that was him as well. Wayne Peterson or Brad Smith in this book? A good question. Let me see. I think so. Let's see. Nope, not there. Not quite. Here you go. We got Tim Steele in here. Tim Steele's first attempt at an ARCA start was in a James Finch Chevy in the fall of 1992 at Texas World Speedway. Joe Ruttman's full name is Raymond Joe Ruttman. Wow, didn't know that one, actually. And let's see. We got the Allisons here. We got Kimmel's. We showed last week the Frank Kimmel book, which has some wonderful pictures in there as well to show his career, especially as the ARCA series developed there as well. I'm sure there's some. Let me see. Is there a? No, Ellsworth. Let me see. Talladega, Faustina, Seifert. No, not in there. I thought we had some Mark Thompson in here. I don't recall offhand, but I'd be kind of surprised that they didn't have any Mark, get any of him there in here. With Wayne Peterson or Brad Smith. I think that would really stand out. If something does turn up, I mean, I may still glance at this here during the show here tonight, but I don't see any offhand. But again, an interesting book and a good way to. This is something you probably want to hang on to if you ever go out to an ARCA race there as well, and you can kind of just look up something because something may be. History playing out in front of you there too. But again, details on HIE Publishing and their books, I would highly recommend checking out the link in the description of this video. You got some of the books are available on eBay and other places there as well. So if you are interested in that, you can check that out there at the same time. So, alrighty. Okay, so we'll get into our trivia section here. Let me just check our inspection here right quick, and then we will get into that. Oh, we do have this 22 minutes ago. Apologies, I'm sure you guys were trying to get my attention earlier. But yes, we do have confirmed 22 minutes ago, Cup Tech complete, no issues. Suarez is the winner. So again, congratulations to Daniel Suarez on his third career Cup victory. And again, your last place finisher is going to be, it should be still Zilich. The results still show that correctly? Yes. Yes, the results here do show Cindric and Zilich completing 52 laps. Zilich did drive to the garage, but he did not cross the stripe to do so. So that should be correct there as well. So there you go. All right. So that will be the article later tonight. All right. Nope. You're very welcome. Yeah, you're very welcome there, Matthew. Thank you for checking out the show tonight. So I'm going to step aside for just a moment. Looks like the screen is still working. I'm in the process here of upgrading this as well. And then we will do some trivia here. Those of you, do we have any moderators here in the chat to take care of what's going on here on the side as well? And if we could do that, I will jump back and we will do our trivia portion. So stay tuned, folks. I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so before we get into that too, I just want to mention also, before we get into our trivia portion here, big thanks to those of you who checked out my Arthur Griner video earlier this week. That was something I've been trying to put together last year, and unfortunately, my timing is always pretty terrible with these. Like, I came up with this and started to find some research, and of course, it was after the Indy 500, so I kind of been hanging on to that and wanted to get it out there before this year's Indy 500. But I hope you're interested in the story there as well. It was taking so many twists and turns. I was half expecting he was going to end up on the Lusitania or something by the end of it there. But I was also intrigued to just kind of learn about early auto racing and just what it was like, where you really barely had like a sanctioning body of any kind out there. What it was like for the first Indy 500 when it was just, kind of just a regular, um, even the concept of going to a race was like, hard to understand because they didn't have grandstands that were big enough for people to see through the dust and all that. I hope you guys are interested in that video because I had interest in putting that together, and I think it made for an interesting story. So if you haven't checked that out, also made a shorter video with that there, being about 10 minutes or so there, the story of Arthur Griner, the first last place finisher of the Indy 500. So you can check that out there on the channel if you haven't already. So let me get into also, again, thank you to Kevin Schwarzy again for sponsoring this stream. I saw somebody mention Greg Trammell here as well, and I do need to correct myself on that. He corrected me on this pronunciation. I think I said Trammell before because I thought it was that, but it's Trammell is the correct pronunciation there of his name. So again, something learned there on my end there too when it came to the ARCA series there. But big thanks to Kevin as well. He also did a really good video talking about Kyle Busch and what his legacy should be that I recommend checking out. And also, if I haven't mentioned this earlier in the show too, one I thought that was particularly profound was a post that was made by Austin Dillon talking about Busch's career and getting up into the Cup Series and kind of following his career and how their paths kind of converged there. I think that was also very eye-opening into what he was contributing to RCR and what he would have continued to had he lived as well. So if you haven't checked out his posts on that, I'm sure it's on Twitter. I know it's on Facebook there as well. Austin Dillon's post on that is very interesting. So definitely check that out. I did think about doing a stream the other day at the same time, and yeah, maybe doing a stream there with his first win. Yeah, I would not rule that out either. That's always a possibility. But we'll find out if that's going to be the case there too. Right now, it's kind of tricky with the season being what it is. We'll just be focusing on the post-race shows, but maybe down the line we'll look into that there too. As a matter of fact, actually, I do have another stream idea coming up for another marker here with the channel, but I'll have some more information on that pretty soon. Got a question here about Kyle Busch's last place finishes as well. As I'm trying to remember, I believe it was back in 2004, that same season, had his first last place run. But in this one here, did not finish last in the Truck Series until very recently. So he is one of the drivers that's completed the last car Triple Crown. Had some last place runs in the Cup Series and some of the Xfinity Series there, but very few in the trucks. I think only one or two. But 17 in total is where he ranks in the all-time list. That ties him with A.J. Allmendinger, Buddy Baker, Jimmy Means, Reed Sorensen, Michael Waltrip, and Cale Yarborough. So again, another measure of other big names in the sport there as well, and certainly other drivers that have been in the sport for a very long time there as well. Looking at this, I may put more details on that in the article for tonight. We'll look into that as well. But 13 of those last place runs were in the Cup Series. So predominantly on that side of the aisle there was where those came up. So very few in O'Reilly in the Truck Series there as well. But again, we'll have more information on that for you guys there going forward. So we will do, let me close this out here. Yeah, we'll do this and then we'll get This put out here. Oh, Desert Fox, thank you for your super chat. Vody put together a playlist of every Kyle Busch win he has in all 3 series. 65 videos in total, starting with the very first COT race at Bristol. I did not know that. That's an excellent choice. Kudos to Vody on that. Again, he's done a tremendous work with his archives there, and I love seeing his videos, and hopefully that'll be something. Yeah, I hope more people are checking that out for sure. So definitely check out Vody's channel if you haven't already. I think that'll be another one to look at. But yeah, when he said that he didn't like the car tomorrow, I mean, that's the other thing it's one of the many things we're going to miss. And that's another part of it is how outspoken he was about the cars. Wasn't happy with this car. Wasn't happy with the COT. That's another thing that needs to be kind of checked out there at the same time. Alrighty. Cool Dylan, thank you for tuning in here as well. Appreciate you checking out the show tonight. You're just in time. We're about to do our trivia section. So let's jump over to the second screen and we will do that. So don't mean to tease this too much, but yes, I think we need to make sure we pick the right avatar for tonight. So let's go into that. Alrighty. So we got the, I believe it's 1999 here for this. Which number we got to do, or which one should we pick? Go ahead and let me know in the chat which one you like. We'll go through the list here in the meantime. So we got the first 5 here with Park, Wallace, Earnhardt, Hamilton, and Terry Labonte. Then we got Mark Martin, Michael Waltrip, Jeremy Mayfield, Kevin LePage, Bobby Labonte, and Tony Stewart, Ward Burton. We got Jeff Gordon, Kenny Irwin, and Mike Skinner. We have Ken Schrader, Ernie Irvin, Sterling Marlin, Joe Nemechek, and John Andretti. Then we have Adam Petty, Kenny Wallace, Dale Jarrett, Bill Elliott, and Chad Little. And finally, we got Jeff Burton, Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Speaking of which, while you guys are picking those, I haven't even mentioned, I mean, God, there's been so much that's happened this week. The NASCAR Hall of Fame vote. So we had Larry Phillips getting in on the Pioneer ballot. I didn't have too strong a feeling on that. I will freshly admit I'm not as familiar with his career as Dale Jr. is, but I know Jr. is very passionate about that, and seeing him get across the line there on that. So I'm glad that worked out. And for me, it's a good opportunity to just learn more about his career. I honestly was looking kind of Harry Hyde on that. I thought for sure he'd be getting in, especially with the Hendrick connection. But again, hopefully that'll be working out soon. For Kevin Harvick to get in is not surprising. Certainly his excellence in all 3 series. I will admit that I was among those that was very surprised that Biffle was not nominated himself. I think that, I mean, I get people feeling like, oh, it's like we're only admitting him because of the tragedy in December. And I really think that's selling it short. I think even if that weren't the case, he would be a really strong candidate for being as good as he was in the top 3 series, for his philanthropic work there off the racetrack. Yeah, I mean, the effect he had on the sport, and certainly seeing everybody's reaction to what happened in December should have been more than enough. So I was a bit surprised. Jeff Burton getting brought in there, it's not a bad choice. I understand the surprise because I share it. However, again, Jeff Burton, very outspoken on the subject of safety. And again, this was kind of what we were talking about on the show tonight. Talking about the safety of the cars, talking about the safety of the drivers themselves. I think it's also kind of relevant. I kind of mute that in the meantime here. Kind of relevant to the discussion about that at the same time that, to reward Jeff Burton for that. I think he was a solid driver in his career. He did have a couple periods where it was very surprising that, he wasn't winning as many races, but so is Dale Jr. And, he's in the Hall of Fame. So I think the metric for what brings people in is a little bit more complicated than just what you could pull up on Racing Reference. I think there's much more to it. And Jeff Burton spoke out about safety at a time where that was just not very popular. And I think was ultimately vindicated in the terrible tragedies that happened afterwards and the response that there's been since then. So I think it's good that gets recognized, and I hope that that's a big part of what they recognize in his career, not just what he did on track. So yeah, we'll see how that goes too. So I am disappointed that Neil Bonnet's not in. I still think he should be brought in the near future. It's going to be very tough with Biffle still on the ballot, and then you're going to get Truex on there. It just feels like every year it's just going to get kicked down the road because you're going to get some Cup Series regular that had a very good career that is going to swing over a lot of the younger people that are on the board, or maybe, not as historically inclined members of the board that are just going to vote for, for these drivers. And, yeah, eventually, those drivers are going to be in there. But I mean, do we really need to stretch this even further? I still think, and I feel like I've made the point enough in videos I produced and talking about on the show here that, Neil Bonnet literally just gave everything to the sport, and, in every sense of the term. I think that would be fair to bring up. And I really thought the Earnhardt documentary was going to put him over the top. That is until the Biffle accident happened. And then I think at that point, the discussion was going that direction. There's been discussion, of course, about Kyle Busch getting into the Hall of Fame and just pushing him right through. And honestly, at this point, I don't mind that. If they just push him right through and they bring him in there, and, tragedy or none, yeah, I have zero issue with him getting brought in. Why do we have to do this whole song and dance? We got to wait 3 years or whatever. We got to make sure there's this many on this ballot or this many on that one. You don't want to necessarily, I guess, have a situation where when anything, I mean, hopefully something like this isn't common, but, where, everybody gets automatically brought in at that point. But it's a very hard one to just conclude that he's not eligible. I mean, as to the fan vote, I know that was discussed with Chase Elliott this week. I don't know. I don't know how much, I think the Dale Earnhardt vote that pretty much just organically happened in 2001, at least as far as I remembered on that. I don't remember if Elliott recused himself in that when he was as popular as he was and winning it every year. And I don't blame, Chase Elliott for being somewhat non-committal in his response to it. It's a strange position to put somebody in. But he didn't sound against it either. So I think, that could be the direction there, at the same time. So yeah, exactly, Brian. Yeah. EIRI. Exactly. It's rare instances. It's definitely rare. I think this is a pretty exceptional case, and especially for it to happen immediately after they called this class. I mean, is it really that difficult at this point? I think it would be very easy. It's like, and we're putting him in. It's like, okay, it's not like the man didn't earn it. And yeah, I think that would be good. I think that would be fine. I actually kind of go with Keselowski on that. I think that's probably the direction we should go. I don't see why wait, so yeah, exactly. But we'll see. I don't know. But any rate, which avatar did you want on the game here? We'll pull that up here too. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, again, the Hall of Fame stepped in a landmine from the start when they didn't just admit the 50 greatest drivers. That we shouldn't be arguing is Darrell Waltrip should be in there before Bobby Allison or Cale Yarborough. It's like, come on. I think we narrowed down a list already. That entire group should have been in there. And they probably should have brought in all the ones that were the 75 greatest drivers after. Then we can actually focus on the individual contributions and maybe people we don't know. And again, so we'll see what's the story there with that too. Let's see. 18 and 5, those are possibilities for Kyle Busch here in terms of the avatar we can run. We can do that. We can also do the 36. We have the M&M's car in here in the game, so we have that option if we want to go by sponsor. So let me know in the chat here which one you'd like. Let's see. I'm kind of leaning towards Irvin with the M&M's thing. I think that might work. But again, if you want, we could do the 18 for Labonte, or we can go to the 5 of Terry Labonte for another number that he ran in his career. I think those are probably the 3 best candidates. So let me know which one you'd like, and we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll do some questions. We do have the 7 in here. We don't have a 51. We do have the 7 for Michael Waltrip, so that'll be the Phillips car, the Phillips Klossner car from 99. So that's the one that we have in here on this one. So that would be a bit different. Again, we could do Bobby Labonte. We could do the 18. We could do, that's totally fine. We can do, yeah, any of these. So we got many options. It was a bit more obvious when we did the 97 there for Van Gisbergen's win at Watkins Glen. But we'll jump in just a sec. Beast of Metal, thank you for your super chat for $5. I wonder if it's time to start separating broadcasters as well as crew members and executives from drivers on the Hall of Fame ballots. It probably wouldn't hurt. I mean, I don't know how they decide who's on the group there or anything, but I think that would be another one to. It might not hurt to try to do something like that. But yes, thank you so much for your super chat there, Beast of Metal. It's a fair point. I think a lot of things at the Hall of Fame could probably use some freshening up, but very similar to the broadcast booths themselves. So maybe that'll be another place to look at there. And 611 Hornet 5, I saw your super chat here as well. I don't want to miss that for $5. Thank you for this message here earlier. This is the first Cup Series win for the number 7 since Jeff Bodine and Watkins Glen in 1996. You are correct. I had to double check that on the way in. I talked about that with Laspro here. And I think, Brian, you were asking about this too. It's like, yeah, Robbie Gordon seems like he should have won in the 7 car at some point, but not in a Cup race. I remember in 2006, I was rooting for him to win Sears Point, then he wrecked in turn 11 there and wasn't a factor in that one. But it would have been great if he pulled it off. I mean, certainly in the O'Reilly series, if we're talking about that, he certainly had some good runs. But yeah, I don't believe he actually broke through in those. The Squire Hall Award, yeah, it's true. You got that. Broadcasters have their own category. Well, it's their own category. Is that their own category for who the nominees are or who votes for them? I don't even remember. But either way, it's good that they have that. I think that was the one where it was kind of surprising that Dr. Dick Bergeron wasn't already nominated. So that'd be another one there, too. The Monster Car in 2007, yeah, that was pretty sick. That's not bad. I like the one where they used the Kyle Petty base, but they used the black and yellow for the Menard scheme. That one looked really nice. I saw that person in 06 in Sears Point. That looked so cool. I bought a hat from his hauler. I got that in my box there somewhere. Let's go back into here. Let's see. 18 was his most. I mean, I'm kind of leaning. Okay, it looks like let's just go ahead and pick. I'll go ahead and pick for you guys. We'll do 18, and then we'll get Kyle's number on that. So we'll go ahead and jump into that. That'll be the Interstate Batteries one. That's a scheme he ran a lot in his career. I think that'll be good too. And again, this doesn't have to be the only Kyle-related graphic we could do. We could do one of the other numbers there for other shows too. So we'll do that.
You're heading for the wedge tiles. A right answer there will put you one lap closer to the finish line.
All right, let's take out the timer. Let's get some questions here. I know it's been a long wait for you guys, and it's about 11 o'clock Pacific here, so we will do that here and do some questions to wrap up the show. So I appreciate you sticking with me. It's been a bit of a odyssey here, but we will jump into that. So let's do it. All right, let's start with teams.
What car owner won 3 NASCAR Winston Cup titles with Darrell Waltrip driving? Junior Johnson, Darrell Waltrip, Roger Penske, Dyegard Racing.
I always like how Eli Gold said Darrell Waltrip's name. Darrell Waltrip. It just sounds great. But yes, what car owner won 3 NASCAR Winston Cup titles with Darrell Waltrip driving? Was it Junior Johnson, DW himself, Roger Penske, or Dyegard Racing? Go ahead and guess in the chat, and we will do that. We'll pick any highlighted to tie tile. And we will wrap up here our show here tonight. All right, I'm seeing a lot of Junior Johnsons in the chat here. Want to say Junior Johnson? Let's go. Oh, here we go. I'm looking at 2 different screens here. Let me make sure I'm syncing this up. Okay, here we go. We'll go with Junior.
Junior Johnson.
You guys are too good. You guys are too good.
Roll again.
Let's roll again.
You can move to any highlighted tile.
All right, let's go to pits.
Answer correctly, and you'll move up in the standings.
What 1955 car had the most powerful full-on-supercharged U.S.-made engine ever? Chevy Impala, Hudson Hornet, Chrysler 300, Pontiac Catalina.
Turned up the volume here in case you can't hear the thing. Can you hear the audio okay on the game? I think I had this down a little low. It's not lagging as bad. Oh, just wait. It'll start lagging. What 1955 car had the most powerful non-supercharged U.S.-made engine ever? Was it the Chevy Impala, the Hudson Hornet, the Chrysler 300, or the Pontiac Catalina? Go ahead and put your answer. Don't have to put the number there. And let me know which one you would say. We got the twin H-powered Hudson. Let's see. Impala, Doc Hudson. 1955 car had the most powerful non-supercharged U.S.-made engine ever. Yeah. Come on, buddy. All right. Have a good night there, Andrew. Take care. Just be wrapping up here in a little bit. Let's see. We got a lot of guesses for the Hudson. Let's go ahead and go into it.
Chrysler 300.
Oh, it's the 300 Desert Fox. And Matthew Teasley, you got it.
Click on the tachometer to roll the die. Move to any highlighted tile.
All right, so we got Badger here. We'll give you a Badger update after we get the next question here. All right, team's question here.
How many NASCAR Winston Cups did A.J. Foyt win in a car he drove and owned? 4, 0, 2, 6.
All right, look at that. They even got a picture of Supertex himself. How many NASCAR Winston Cups did A.J. Foyt win in a car he drove and owned? Was it 4, 0, 2, or 6? How many Winston Cups did he get? 4, 0, 2, or 6 in a car he drove and owned? Here, hang on. We go here. Got a Badger update here. Oop, 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 oop. There he is. There he is. Okay. So how many do you think A.J. Foyt got, Badger? You think so? How many do you think he got? Is it 4, 0, 2, or 6? All right, yeah. It's getting late for him too. We'll get him all set up here. All right, second screen. Let's get back to there. There we go. How many NASCAR Winston Cups did A.J. Foyt win in a car he drove and owned? I see a lot of zeros. I see a couple twos. There we go. Yeah, I thought it said Cup wins. Yeah, it did sound like it. Looks like just Winston Cups. And I think those of you are guessing 0. Correct. There we go. Always love that 14. Just posted that picture earlier today, the diecast for Racing Champions. One of my favorite paint schemes. That Copenhagen car, the one he had in the late 80s and early 90s. Just love that. Just so refined. All right, let's move on here. Move back to pits. Last pup. There you go. Exactly.
Crack mechanic Ray Fox opened a garage in 1957. Charlotte, Darlington, Daytona Beach, Spartanburg.
All righty. Where did crack mechanic Ray Fox open a garage in 1957? Guesses are Charlotte, Darlington, Daytona Beach, and Spartanburg. Yeah, I think it meant championships on that last one. But where did crack mechanic Ray Fox open a garage in 1957? Did Charlotte, Darlington, Daytona Beach, or Spartanburg? Okay, we got some good guesses. We got a lot. I see a few Daytonas. See a couple Spartanburgs. That's all I am seeing here so far. We got a custom number 50 car, the 94 Brickyard car. Very good, Matthew. Yeah, crack mechanic. You got the interesting. Yeah, that's a job term. I usually think of a crack steamer or something in the Navy context. Excuse me. Alrighty, I think we're gonna go with Daytona.
Daytona Beach.
There we go. Spartanburg's a good guess, though.
You can keep going. Select a category.
And it's always possible it's not right. Let's get a wedge for the wild card. How about we do that? Yeah, a little different. All right.
What were the dominant colors of Todd Bodine's helmet and fire suit in 1998's Prime Star 500, which was in celebration of St. Patrick's Day?
Oh, no, that's awfully
Silver and
specific.
green, purple and green, yellow and green, black and green.
Oh, see, you think it's going to be easy, and then they put the same answer in all four. Uh-oh. Now, this is interesting. I don't remember this. This was spring of 98. I didn't watch a lot of those races live, so I don't remember. This will be the spring Atlanta race in 98. So what were the dominant colors of Todd Bodine's helmet and fire suit in 1998's Prime Star 500, which was in celebration of St. Patrick's Day? Well, if we're talking about the paint scheme, then that makes the answer a bit easier. But if we're talking just the helmet and the fire suit, yeah. And we're talking Tabasco, yeah, that's true. That's true. So we're talking silver and green, purple and green, yellow and green, or black and green. Yeah, tricky. Tricky. I love that this question has a lot of little elements to it that make it just a little bit trickier. All right, I'm seeing a lot for black and green. I'm seeing a couple for yellow and green. And silver and green. I think those of you, I mean, silver, I can see that for a helmet, but maybe not. Let's go with black and green. There you go, the 35 car. I do remember that paint scheme, but yeah, in terms of the helmet and the suit, I can't picture that as clearly. All right, that was a good one. That was a good one.
Highlighted tile.
All right, we'll do a couple more here, and then we'll wrap up here tonight. You guys are good. Now, the other person posted that Jimmy was right.
Flag-to-flag coverage of a NASCAR stock car race in 1979. ABC, NBC, TNN, CBS.
There we go. Yeah, Jimmy had that right, too. Yeah, the black and green car started second in that race with Todd Bodine. That's correct. All right, so a little bit of an easier one here. What network carried the first live flag-to-flag coverage of a NASCAR stock car race in 1979? ABC, NBC, TNN, or CBS? Didn't you notice how perfectly Eli Gold said TNN? It just gives you that little hint of nostalgia there, which is fun. All right. CBS, yeah. They got that one. They got that very clear. A little bit too easy. Let's see if we get a harder one here.
Select a category by moving to one of the highlighted tiles.
Oh, there we go.
Who won the Winston under the lights in May of 1992? Alan Kulwicki, Davey Allison, Bill Elliott, Harry Gant.
All right. Who won the Winston under the lights in May of 1992? Alan Kulwicki, Davey Allison, Bill Elliott, or Harry Gant? Alrighty. Well, he did win 3 USAC stock titles. Well, there we go. That's a series I need to do more research on too. I know I got plenty of grief when I said that it was a short-lived series, but that was my own limited knowledge of it. All right, several guesses for Davey Allison. Under the lights during one hot night, and indeed, yes, indeed, Davey Allison.
Take another turn.
Let's do. There we go.
Move to any
See.
highlighted tile.
Ooh, let's do wild card again. Yeah, that was good. All right, Death Killer remembers the terrible broadcast version.
What make of car was the Talladega?
Ah.
Ford, Pontiac, Chevrolet, Chrysler.
What make of car was the Talladega? Was it Ford, Pontiac, Chevrolet, or Chrysler? What make was a Talladega? Alrighty. What make of car was the Talladega? We got several for Ford. We got one for Chrysler. If it was a Torino, I'd say Ford. Well, there you go. What make of car was the Talladega? So we're talking about a model. And what make would it be? Would it be Ford, Pontiac, Chevy, or Chrysler? I think you guys are right about the Ford. Ford.
Take another turn.
Alrighty. We'll do one more here, then
You can move to
it's
any
kind of late over here,
highlighted
so we'll
tile.
probably do that. Let's wrap up with a NASCAR question. No problem, Death Killer. I'm glad you liked the video.
What Winston Cup driver was the first pole winner to win the Daytona 500 since Bill Elliott in 1997.
Oh, that's kind of
Rusty
interesting.
Wallace, Dale Jarrett,
Oh, I guess
Jeff
it's
Gordon,
okay.
Dale
The wording
Earnhardt.
was throwing me. All right, what Winston Cup driver was the first pole winner to win the Daytona 500 since Bill Elliott in 1997? Was it Rusty Wallace, Dale Jarrett, Jeff Gordon, or Dale Earnhardt? Now, this is worded badly. Bill Elliott did not win the pole for the Daytona 500 in 1997, but Bill Elliott, before 97, was the most recent driver to win the 500 from the pole. So that's the tricky part. Okay, maybe this one is too easy. Okay. Yeah, I know. See, that's what makes the question badly written. But it looks like you guys got it anyway. You guys got it. You understood it. You understood the assignment. Jeff Gordon.
Jeff Gordon.
There you go. I don't know. Let me try to get a better question than
You
that.
can
Let's
keep
see.
going. You can move to any highlighted tile.
And up hits. These wild card ones are really good.
What Southern rock band was featured in the 1990 NASCAR
this is better.
Rocks America Tour?
This is better.
Molly Hatchet, the Allman Brothers Band, Leonard Skinner, Little Feat.
Okay, now this is a fun one. This is a good one to wrap up on. What Southern rock band was featured in the 1999 NASCAR Rocks America Tour? Was it Molly Hatchet, the Allman Brothers Band, Leonard Skinner, or Little Feat? Isn't that a Tim and Eric sketch? Little Feet? Oh, that's Petite Feet. That's different. I don't know. All right, I'll let you guys guess on this one. This is a bit more open-ended. This is a bit more open-ended. And you're right, Ultimate 23. Yeah, Elliott should have won the Daytona 500, but he didn't win the pole. And yeah, actually, Rooney Mac, you're right. That is screwed up. That last one is screwed up because yeah, it was Skinner on the pole in '97, right? But Gordon won the race. They must have been thinking '99 because '99 was the year that Gordon won the race from the pole. Okay, well, hey, yeah, there we go. Well, quality control is not the best on this game, unfortunately. But you're very right there, Rooney, so thank you for bringing that up. What Southern rock band was featured in the 1999 NASCAR Rocks America Tour? Wish I could see all four, dang it. There you go. Little Feat. I know, Little Feat's cracking me up, too. Molly Hatchet, the Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, and Little Feat. Little Feat. Let's see. All right, I'm seeing a lot for Skinner. I'm seeing a couple for Hatchet. I'm kind of leaning towards Skinner. I mean, that sounds like what they would do. But I can kind of see Molly Hatchet do it also. I mean, I don't know. Oh, it's the Allman Brothers. Again.
Click on the tachometer to roll the die.
Okay. Well, I think we're gonna call it there. Alrighty. Well, let me get my mouse back over here. Little Feat would be fun too. Alrighty. Well, that will about do it for the show tonight. So again, congratulations to Daniel Suarez for pulling off a tremendous victory in the rain-shortened Coca-Cola 600, and congratulations to our other winners this weekend as well as Felix Rosenquist, your Indy 500 champion for this year. A wild weekend and definitely a challenging one at that at the same time. Before I leave you tonight, I want to leave you with another story from Kyle Busch that I remember very clearly. Now, he and I never really crossed paths. I don't think we've even shared, two words or anything. We had, I've shared some pictures from over the years, including when he won the last race at Fontana, which is the first time that Lucas Oil won a race there. But one thing I do remember very clearly is back in August of 2003, the weekend that Kurt Busch won at Bristol, which was after the Jimmy Spencer confrontation. I was in Las Vegas on a family trip, and we ran into a race fan out there because we wanted to find out a place that we could, watch the race for that weekend. And I remember he was bringing up, he was like, yeah, Kurt's really good. He's winning all these races, and he's really dominant. And I guess this guy knew Kurt Busch from somewhere. And he said that it's like, yeah, well, I was talking with Kurt about that, but you know what? You got to wait for his brother, because Kurt told me, this person, that, yeah, you got to watch out for my brother because he's really good. And yeah, we all found that out very quickly. So Godspeed, Kyle Busch. I'll be with the Busch family during this difficult time, and we will all have the good memories to certainly recall there. So with that will do it for our show tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. The website is lastcar.info. My Twitter feed is @LastCarOnBrock. The Patreon is patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. And of course, there's more videos on this channel. In fact, I recorded another script this weekend, so we'll have that for you very soon, and get some more content up for you guys in the meantime. Our next show is going to be next week after the Cup Series race at Nashville. We're still working out what time that's going to be. If it's not going to be Sunday evening, it might be Monday evening. For more information on that, stay tuned to my Twitter feed @LastCarOnBrock. I may also put an update on this channel as well. So have a great evening, everyone. Have a safe Memorial Day weekend and a restful week, and I will see you all next time. Take care, everyone.